Chapter 28. Kai. Hayden became a sanctuary for those who survived the outside chaos, thanks to Lonnie's efforts. It made Kai love her and angered him all at the same time. While he saw Hayden as a refuge for those escaping the rat race, he didn't mean it was for everyone. He only meant people like him and her. The people. Not every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Or Chris. Ugh, Chris. A pale and weak-willed man, always pining after his sister like a love-struck puppy. He hated him, and yet he didn't. He was just another man who desired Lonnie and was lousy at hiding it. What was the deal with these guys? All of them exhibited the identical behavior, pining over Lonnie, viewing her like some kind of rare and exotic being. Was it some kind of savior complex that drove them to act this way? Or was it something else altogether? Kai packed his fishing gear into the back of the old boat, shaking his head and sending droplets of sweat flying as the briny scent of the lake mixed with the fresh aroma of bait. Fat worms he'd picked earlier that morning. In his mind, he had always pictured himself fishing alongside the members of his community, a cohesive unit working towards a common goal. And now, as he stepped down onto the sandy beach, waiting for Chris, that dream had become a reality. But it wasn't quite what he imagined in his mind. Not in this new world taken over by the decree. He looked up, noticing the sounds of footsteps coming his way, and spotted Chris, dressed in fatigues, or what Kai assumed was fishing gear. Chris pushed the glasses up from the bridge of his nose and ran his hands through his tousled hair, as if he had just woken up to face the world. He scanned his surroundings, feeling lost because Lonnie was nowhere to be seen. God forbid she did anything without him. Spotting Kai, Chris lifted his hand and waved. Not a man of many emotions, Kai gave a brief nod before continuing to pack. As he gazed at the lake and the boat, he dreaded spending the day with a middle-aged white guy. Yet this is what he had wanted, to spend his days in the company of others, fishing and providing for the community. It was just he imagined someone other than Chris. Just saying the guy's name made him cringe. Kai hated that he had the name Chris. He knew he was being illogical. He knew it, but it didn't matter. Kai did not want the name coming from his lips. They both turned at once to the feminine voice coming towards them. It was Lonnie's voice, soft and female. A voice whose tone eased anxiety and provided comfort in sadness. The voice of a mother. His sister, clad in gardening clothes, walked toward them with a cooler of food and water, smiling and waving. The sight of her made Kai feel a rush of warmth. A grin spread across his face. At that moment, he got it. He understood how Chris and all the men before him had seen his sister, like a mythical creature straight out of fairy tales. She shone like a guiding light, drawing in everyone who knew her with a warmth and vibrant presence. She was Kai's sister, the most precious person to him in the world. His gaze shifted just enough to glimpse Chris's hand waving like a maniac at Lonnie. His face was aglow with the same pure joy that moments ago Kai felt when seeing her. He hated Chris for it. As she approached them, Lonnie handed the cooler to Chris instead of Kai, causing a jolt of surprise to run through him. I brought you guys some sandwiches, cold drinks, you know, all the good stuff. Don't want my boys to get hungry.
My boys?
Kai felt his insides recoil. Chris beamed. Lonnie girl, you are a saint. She giggled. His sister giggled at the words of the shell of a man, like a schoolgirl, right in front of Kai. His stomach turned. He stopped and gazed into Lonnie's gentle, round face, noticing her eyes crinkling at the edges. A rosy hue appeared on her cheeks. Shame washed over him. He hadn't seen his sister smile like that in a long time. The world was ending, and his sister was smiling. Surrounded by a constant flow of people, Lonnie thrived in the hustle and bustle of unified efforts of running Hayden. Her genuine passion always lay in nurturing others, especially the vulnerable women and children under her care. It was second nature to her, fulfilling her role as a caregiver and a mother figure to those in need, both physical and emotional. She was always there. That was the essence of Lonnie. It was who she was at her core. Her heart overflowed with love and compassion for everyone, including Chris, or rather, especially Chris, much to Kai's dismay. Kai stood, listening and nodding, concealing his resentment towards the man who brought happiness to his sister in the darkness. Lonnie leaned in close to Kai, wrapping her arms around his shoulders and whispering in his ear, "Be kind to Chris," she urged him. "He knows more than you realize. Talk to him. Listen to his ideas for Hayden. He can be a great help to all of us." Kai's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at Lonnie.
"Chris, are we talking about the same guy?"
He watched Chris sitting on the boat, a goofy expression plastered on his face as he stared back at them. "Trust me. Give him a chance," Lonnie said, squeezing his arm. "You might surprise yourself."
"I doubt it."
She swatted him and gave him a push. Rolling her eyes in mock frustration, she shook her head and turned to leave. "You boys better play nice now," she called over her shoulder. "And make sure to bring home some fresh fish to cook with the vegetables I'll be harvesting." Surrounded by the sound of chirping birds and rustling leaves, she vanished up the trail and into the dense foliage, leaving Kai and Chris alone with each other. As Kai paddled back to Hayden, his brain felt ready to explode from the overwhelming day with Chris. He couldn't believe how much the guy knew about fishing. It was almost intimidating. Even though Kai was a skilled fisherman, he couldn't help but feel a mild feeling of embarrassment that Chris might be even better than him. Chris was no novice. His expertise and experience were clear in every move he made on the boat. With each catch, Chris wielded his knife with effortless precision, slicing open the fish's belly and spilling its guts onto the water with a smooth flick of his wrist. The metallic scent of blood filled the air, drawing in even more fish to the boat. He tossed the meat into the iced cooler, joining the other gleaming catches they had reeled in, all the while talking non-stop about Lonnie. A soothing orange light illuminated the tranquil water as the sun dipped below the horizon. The oars broke through the surface of the water, disrupting the peaceful reflection of the sky and the clouds on the surface, sending ripples out in every direction. While Chris carried on about their weekend hunting plans, Kai's mind remained consumed by the day's events. Out of nowhere, Chris brought up the topic of protecting themselves from the decree. Kai's ears pricked up. This was a departure from the topic of his sister.
"What do you mean?"
he asked, finding his voice after being quiet for most of the day, letting Chris dominate the conversation. "Create a defensive team, an army, so to speak," Chris continued without skipping a beat. Sitting across from Kai in the small boat, Chris's face glowed with excitement. The oars dipped into the water, propelling them closer and closer to the shore. "So I've been thinking," Chris began, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "We could start our own little army within Hayden. Have guards patrolling the borders, only allowing those deemed safe to enter. We could implement a system resembling a government, with a president and assigned members handling different tasks. We need to stockpile supplies, like canned goods, and search for other survivors. Setting up medical care for those in need is also a must. People get sick and hurt. We need to be prepared for it." Kai listened, his mind hyper-focused, taking in everything Chris said. He couldn't find the right words to respond. Chris made valid points, and it was crystal clear. They needed to take action. Several months had passed since the takeover of Lex, but they still saw no sign of authorities coming to their rescue. Despite not being surprised, Kai still held on to hope. Chris's face grew serious, his jaw tightened. His eyes hardened, focusing on something unseen. Witnessing an unfamiliar side of Chris, Kai felt the air turn colder, sending pinprick bumps to rise on his arms and down his back. "The decree are a powerful and dangerous force, man," Chris warned. The tone of his voice hinted at a deeper understanding of this group than he had previously disclosed. "Their plans are calculated and ruthless. We have to do everything we can to defend ourselves from them." Chris's eyes revealed a flicker of fear. It made Kai uneasy. It felt like waiting for a roller coaster to drop, expecting and startling. "We can't underestimate them," Chris warned. "Ever."
"How do you know so much about the decree and Malcolm Gobo?"
Kai's eyebrows furrowed in confusion as he stared at Chris. He had no idea who the decree and Malcolm Gobo were until Chris had shown up on that fateful day, seeking shelter with other survivors brought to Hayden by Lonnie. He recalled hearing their names mentioned on the radio, or seeing a brief news report about the organization, but it never registered as something worth paying attention to. The rhythmic splash of the oars filled the air as Kai rowed towards the shore. He fixed his eyes on Chris. It was the first time that day he felt curious to hear more from the guy. The unexpected barking of a dog nearby broke the weight of the situation, disturbing the peaceful atmosphere around them. Not a big dog, the sound of one of those little yappy dogs that old people like to get. As the boat bumped against the sandy shore, both men sprang to their feet. With practiced movements, they began pulling the boat in, their eyes scanning the shoreline for the source of the loud barking. A small gray and white dog darted out from behind a clump of bushes, its tail wagging furiously as it ran towards them. So much so, Kai thought it would fall over with excitement. A smile briefly flickered on his face. Chris crouched down, meeting the dog's excited gaze as it stood on its hind legs. Its front paws danced in the air in a gesture that looked like a wave. Chris laughed, petting the dog, who eagerly licked his face. Kai watched, confused, feeling uncomfortable.
Where did the dog come from?
Oh, you sweet little thing. You sweet, sweet, sweet little thing. Where did you come from?
Chris gushed, echoing Kai's thoughts.
Meggie Mugs!
A young female voice pierced the air, causing the dog's ears to perk up and its paws to freeze in midair. Chris rose, his eyes fixed on the direction of the dog's gaze. Lonnie emerged from the dense underbrush, clutching a woven basket overflowing with freshly picked vegetables. Following her was a scowling young girl, her dark hair tangled and unkempt, hidden beneath layers of oversized hoodies. A bulging backpack filled with camping gear weighed heavily on her shoulders. Her face betrayed a mixture of anger, youthfulness, vulnerability, and toughness all at once. The dog barked and sprinted towards Lonnie and the unfamiliar teenager, who appeared to be no older than 15 or 16. Lonnie raised a hand in greeting, giving the girl beside her a reassuring look as they moved towards them. Kai stood frozen.
What on earth was going on?
Chris made his way closer to Lonnie. Grinning like a little kid, he extended his arms to say hello. The young girl stepped aside as Chris, with a quick squeeze, hugged Lonnie and took the heavy basket of vegetables she was carrying. The girl glared at Kai with a mix of apprehension and perhaps a touch of fear. He could understand why. He was tall. At 6 feet 3 inches, he was intimidating, and compared to the girl, he was giant. She was lucky if she was even 5 feet. But there was something in her eyes that told him she may be small, but she was fierce. Feeling a scratch on his leg, Kai looked down to find the little dog bouncing and staring at him. Bending down, he lifted the quivering thing and allowed it to wiggle into his arms, with excitement attempting to lick his face. He lifted his chin, trying to avoid the small pink tongue. Lonnie laughed.
Kai, you are nothing more than a lovable teddy bear. I can't even look at you.
Chris stood with his left arm draped over Lonnie's shoulders, a wide grin spreading across his face. They couldn't contain their amusement as they watched Kai struggle with the wiggling little dog. Lonnie leaned closer to the girl beside her and linked arms. Instantly, the girl's tense muscles relaxed under Lonnie's touch. She lifted her gaze from Kai to Lonnie, seeking comfort and reassurance in her presence. The dog nestled in Kai's arms, observing the others, taking in its surroundings. He absent-mindedly stroked the dog's head, his eyes remaining fixed on Lonnie, anticipating an explanation for the unexpected arrival of these new companions.
Well, I see you have already met Meggie Mugs.
Kai glanced at the dog, who looked right at him and nodded a little, shivering and licked his hand as though introducing itself.
And here we have Summer.
Lonnie gave the girl a friendly squeeze on the shoulders, as if they were old friends.
She's going to be staying with us from now on.
Kai narrowed his eyes at the girl, still petting the dog's head. They looked at each other, each displaying their mistrust and suspicion of the other. Chris reached out to take Summer's hand without warning. She jumped at the unexpected touch, her body stiffening with surprise. Her hand swiftly moved to her side pocket, exposing the visible handle of a knife. In an instant, Kai became rigid, ready to spring into action. Meggie Muggs let out a bark, signaling a warning to Chris. She squirmed, wanting to be let down. Kai carefully loosened his grip on the small, scruffy dog and watched it scamper towards the girl. The dog leapt to touch the girl's leg with 2 paws, leaving smudges of dirt and grime on her clothes. It then snuggled close to her, resting its head on top of her foot. It narrowed its eyes, giving Kai a warning look.
Animals, he thought. Pay attention to those they are loyal to.
Lonnie, as though nothing had just happened, began talking with Chris. She listened attentively as Chris recounted the day's events on the lake in vivid detail, including the latest conversation he had with Kai coming home. Their voices droned on. Kai remained still, observing the kid petting the dog with an accusatory look. The dog daring Kai to say something to the girl. Feeling uneasy and slightly irritated, Kai started sorting their fresh catch and fishing equipment. He focused on carefully untangling fishing lines and stowing away tools, retreating into his own thoughts, leaving behind the fading voices of his sister and Chris. He wasn't sure of this kid with their hand ready and waiting to draw a knife at her side. He wasn't sure if he liked her here at Hayden. Something felt different with this one. Her eyes, like his, told a story. A story he wasn't sure he wanted to know.